What is up, everyone? It's Flash back with some more charts and another video. Today is Tuesday, May 14th. It's about 3:15 p.m. Eastern. And in this video, I'm going to go through most, if not all, of the uranium stocks that I follow and compare them to how they are performing against the S&P 500, which you'll see is this indicator in red, how they're performing against gold, which is this indicator in green, and then how they're performing against URA. The broader uranium index has a lot of data, so it's you can see it pop up on some higher time frames. And so SPX, gold, and URA. And so the point of this is to try to identify which uranium stocks are outperforming the others. And generally that's found by comparing it, measuring it in URA. But also just good to know that we'll have tailwinds at our back on the way up in this bull market when we're outperforming the S&P 500, when we're outperforming gold. If you follow some of my videos, I'm kind of looking at where capital is flowing. And so if we have some stocks that are outperforming a lot of these indices and commodities and ETFs, I think we're going to be in a really good spot by investing in those. So not financial advice, do your own research. This is some research that I'm kind of providing you, and just my opinion. So drop me a like if you guys think this is helpful. If you're going to follow along for the entirety of this uranium bull market, I'll be along for the ride and kind of giving you at least my opinion on things. And so we're on CCJ right now, as you can see, and on the right-hand side, I've broken up a lot of these tickers into the leaders of the pack, the middle of the pack, and kind of the ones that are lagging. And I think you'll see why as I go through these. But just to bring it back to URA, you'll notice that when URA is measured against URA, it's pretty much a 1-for-1. So this yellow line is going to be flat, right? But if we look at URA measured in the S&P and measured in gold, generally this kind of looks like a bottoming pattern where it's kind of a rounded bottom, and the red line, the green line, it's popped above the 3-year moving average. This is on the monthly time frame. So we popped above, we're showing some strength, and we're trying to break out of this base. And so I think that's what's going to be occurring over the next few weeks, few months, few quarters, few years. That's generally, it looks like money is flowing, capital is flowing into URA, the uranium stock space. So that's kind of point number one. And so CCJ, you guys have seen this here. We're kind of in this accumulation cylinder, both against the S&P 500 and versus gold. That's a bullish pattern, I think. We can draw some horizontal lines where there's a lot of support and resistance, and especially against gold, we're above some key support, which is good. And we've been consistently outperforming URA, which is really good to see. You can even throw in a horizontal line here, tell us when specifically CCJ really started outperforming URA recently. So again, CCJ, a leader in the space, a lot of liquidity in CCJ, which I think larger investors prefer and like. So you can see that there's clearly some capital that's been flowing into CCJ, and it looks like it's going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. Okay, over to BMN, Bannerman. And again, this, guys, is why I think we have so much room in front of us. Like, we are just starting to outperform the S&P 500 and gold with Bannerman. And Bannerman's one of my favorites on this list because how clear it is that we're starting to kind of really gather some momentum against these broader indices and commodities. So Bannerman, one of the best of the bunch. It's in the second on my list for a reason. Super good looking chart from a ratio perspective. We'll drop onto Boss Energy, BOE. And with Boss, we only have data going back to about 2007, but there's a clear horizontal break line here against the S&P 500. We've already kind of broken out of that horizontal against gold, and we're just generally outperforming URA. So Boss Energy, great leader. It's on this list for a reason, similar to Bannerman and CCJ, and it looks like steady as she goes in an uptrend, and just breaking out now against the S&P 500, which is really great to see. Over to Paladin, PDN. Similar to, we'll drop back to Bannerman, kind of a similar look and feel to Bannerman, but again, huge horizontal breakout against S&P 500, just breaking out versus gold, and broke out against URA back in October/November of 2020. So man, I mean, Paladin just looks so damn good as well. Like, these are the top stocks on my list for a reason. Paladin looks great. Over to Encore Energy. Again, I would consider this a leader of the pack, mostly because it has been outperforming URA so consistently. Looks like we're kind of at the bottom of this channel here, kind of hopefully finding support. We're above that moving average. And we've kind of formed, you can call this a bull flag or just a broader consolidation here against both the S&P 500 and gold. And so just kind of finding its way. And I think it's eventually going to continue popping up, especially outperforming gold, outperforming the S&P. And I have a feeling we're going to continue outperforming URA. So Encore is another really, really good one that I like. Okay, over to FSY, Forsyth Metals Corporation. And I love FSY. I love the chart itself, but we're not looking at the price charts today. We're looking at the ratios. And so this one still has some resistance to work its way through against gold and the S&P. But if we zoom in on the S&P, it's just clearly defined, kind of another accumulation type cylinder, rounded bottom, rounded base. It's what you want to see on these bigger time frames when we're at the beginning, early innings of a bull market. And so when it comes to URA versus URA, big breakout, kind of an inverse head and shoulders almost right here. Breakout, back test, and we're above the moving average. It looks like we're going to keep chugging against URA, which is good to see. Okay, UEC. A lot of these are doing similar things. We have a horizontal that we still need to break through. Looks like we've already done it versus gold. And then on URA, it's kind of it's part of a rounded base. And it looks like we're kind of following this parabola almost. So it's pretty cool to see. It's also why I think UEC is going to be a leader and remain a leader, because of the outperformance against URA. If we look over at NextGen, a little bit of a different angle here, but looks like we already broke out of some horizontal resistance against the S&P. We keep bull flagging against gold, and we've been kind of steady versus URA. We had a lot of outperformance in NextGen in 2015 and 2016 and 2017, and then we've kind of been going sideways. So NextGen is an interesting one. It's been a leader in the space. It looks like it's kind of slowing momentum-wise, but still a great stock to own in my opinion. It's going to be going up with the rest of the market, I think. Denison Mines, DNN, another really good looking one in terms of a nice solid base. We're above the 3-year moving average here versus the S&P, and we're kind of breaking out and into this ascending channel. Similar with gold here, kind of more of a down-sloping horizontal, and there is, potentially this rising channel that we could be in. And then with comparison against URA, we've been an outperformer. We've been in kind of this upwards channel. We'll see if we can kind of continue that up. But I do like DNN. Okay, ISO. Another one that looks like it's bull flagging against the S&P, bull flagging against gold. Still have some work to do against both. And we've been outperforming URA. Hopefully we can continue to find support here. This is the time where ISO should be turning up against URA and continue its outperformance. So yeah, all looks pretty good, all looks pretty strong. Lotus Resources, a newer one that I've added. I'm not sure if it should be a leader based on its performance against URA. I may slide this over into the middle of the pack, but just starting to break out against the S&P and against gold. There's probably a horizontal we can throw in here, maybe like right here-ish. But yeah, I mean, it looks okay. It looks middle of the pack. I'd probably prefer to be in some other ones, honestly, but it doesn't look terrible. Okay, Centris. Let's gotta zoom in on these a little bit. Centris I like because it kind of has this cup and handle pattern, both against all of them. Cup, and now we're kind of forming a handle, consolidation, building the energy to continue the outperformance. I do like the look of this with Centris, so good one to keep the eye on. I can throw in this trend line as well. It's kind of doing the same thing against all of them. But Centris looks like it could be an explosive one and become a leader of the pack in the near future. Okay, Elevate. Similar. Let's see if there's a horizontal here against gold. We could maybe put in, similar cup, maybe a different look of a cup and handle almost, but it looks like we've kind of gotten above the 3-year moving average and we're flagging out bullish consolidation below some support and resistance that we need to make support rather, and kind of a bull shape here against URA. So Elevate looks like it could become an outperformer, become a leader of the pack in the near future, similar to Centris. Over to Sky Harbor. And this one, it's starting to be a little bit shaky with Sky Harbor. I've extended this bull, a handful of times. You can continue extending it, but there comes to be a point in time where it may not make sense to continue extending it. This bull is really just kind of a guideline that points out, hey, there's a rounded bottom here. So, I'm still going to give Sky Harbor a chance against the S&P. Looks like a huge bottoming in base against gold. And then it was outperforming URA, back in 2016, 2017, and now we've kind of gone down and sideways. We'll see if we can break out against the URA index. If it does, I would say we can consider Sky Harbor as going to be a leader of the pack. But really solid bases, rounded base, rounded bottoms here, it looks like, versus S&P and gold. Laramide, kind of a similar story, right? Big rounded bottom base, clear horizontal breakout line, another diagonal breakout line. With gold, it's very clear where we need to get above. And then from a URA perspective, again, more so just sideways against URA. So if we want Laramide to be doing well, we gotta break out of these. But it's not gonna happen overnight. Again, the next few weeks, months, quarters, years. That's kind of the time frame that I'm dealing with here. Okay, MGA. MGA looks good. Rounded base, rounded bottom. It's like what you see, and then there's kind of an ascending triangle here against URA. So I'd be expecting this to continue outperforming URA. This is a big consolidation, and I like the look of MGA. It looks similar to, these all kind of look pretty similar. DYL, Deep Yellow, another one that I've been liking a lot recently. The price looks like it's breaking out, but there is a big horizontal downtrend line against the S&P, against gold, that we're going to have to fight in the near future. But looks like we're going to be breaking out of this horizontal in both scenarios. And then looks like we're just about breaking out against URA. So like I said in my previous video, DYL is kind of one that we want to keep our eyes on closely right now, because of what it's showing, especially against URA. Energy Fuels, UUUU. This one is a little bit hairy. You could argue there's a rounded bottom here for all of them, but it's really kind of suffered in recent memory. But I still am hopeful about Energy Fuels. It just looks like it's going to need a little bit more time to kind of prove itself to me. GLO, I don't really have many lines on these because it's kind of a tough one to gauge. I think generally there is a downtrend line that we're going to have to break through here eventually, but it really just needs to take its time and continue consolidating, I think. Not much more to say there. Western Uranium, we're going to star this one as well because there are really well-defined lines on where we need to break out versus these three. It looks very explosive. In each one you can kind of see an inverse head and shoulders that's already forming. And so I imagine there's going to be a horizontal line that we're going to have to break through, but first up is this diagonal. And, it's looking pretty explosive, I want to say. So keep your eye on Western Uranium as well. We'll look at URA. Another kind of big bull flag, it looks like, but compared, it's been going down against URA. But there's a clear line that we have to break out of. So URA could be a potential one in the future that we really seriously consider. FUU, F3, Some more really well-defined chart lines that we can keep an eye on. You know, it looks like we're pole, flag, hopefully it's a bull flag. You know, we're kind of consolidating under a horizontal resistance, and even there's a little bit of a downtrend here against URA. But until we break out against URA, I would say this one is, yep, middle of the pack. Cap, again, not too much to say. General outperformance against the S&P. You know, I guess we can throw a line on like that, which is good. And then maybe a horizontal right here. That can be our, you know, maybe an ascending triangle here for cap and against gold, S&P and gold, and then up and down sideways against URA. So again, middle of the pack. And then Canalaska, some more well-defined breakout lines that we need to conquer versus the S&P versus gold, and then there's a big consolidation happening here against URA, which I think is good to see. It's building energy for a move, in my opinion, and I think that move is going to be towards the upside. And then last but not least, guys, the laggards, bottom of the barrel, BSK. You know, we do have a well-defined line, but this has just been outperforming all of these for so long. But it looks like it can be explosive. It's got to prove itself. FMC, similar story, downtrend, 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 not that pretty. But I still think there's a lot of upside here. This could be a big rounded base, rounded bottom, but time will tell. And then AEC, I threw a couple lines on here. Looks like AEC could be up to something, but it's just been terrible against URA. Like, you'd rather be in the broader ETF than you would be in AEC. But again, you know, it looks like it's kind of trying to maybe gather some sideways momentum for maybe a stage 1 or stage 2 breakout in the near future. Peninsula Energy, downtrends, not much to see. You know, this could be a double bottom of some sort, but again, we need more data. We got to let it play out. GoVX, terrible performance against all three. Very ugly. Not to say it can't do better in the future, but for right now, it's at the bottom of my list. And then Find, baseload. Could make an argument that baseload is going through consolidation, like maybe even a wedge of some sort against the S&P and against gold. So maybe in the near future we could see a pop out of baseload, but for right now, I would just shy away for right now. So that's it, guys. We'll end it. We'll go back to CCJ, like CCJ, BMN, BOE, PDN. All these look really good. And if you find this helpful, feel free to drop me a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.